The Detroit Lions defense has been absolutely dominant, and I got some numbers for you real quick too, but give me a minute to find them. I'll start with this one though, because I know it off the top of my head. Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions defense currently rank number 1 in quarterback passer rating allowed. This is the secondary that last year everybody and their mom easily recognized as the worst to second worst in the league. I mean, they were in the conversation no matter where you were placing them at. They were in the bottom 5.
Yeah.
No questions about it. The best in the entire league, Spinny.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. Some other numbers. You mentioned this one all last week, and it continues this week as well into week 11. First and third down conversions as a defense. Second in interceptions. Second in passing touchdowns allowed, and they're only off by 1 for being in first place to the Chicago Bears. Third in turnovers. 6th in rushing yards allowed, and 8th in points per game allowed. Aaron Glenn is phenomenal. I think we've all we centered around that conversation yesterday. What is it he's doing? Like, what are you guys watching on the field in your eyes that makes this defense translate to those numbers, top 10 across the board? To me, it's Brian Branch being at the safety position, just off the top of my head. I didn't break down any numbers going into this one, but it's the fact that this kid's allowed to roam around. He could play a slot position if he needs to be. He could play a slot cornerback tough, at least tight enough to make a couple pass breakups. Post that on Twitter, by the way. Free Brian Branch highlights. Go get you some. The other part of it, too, he can blitz and get to the quarterback. He had a quarterback hit on the Seer. I think he has a quarterback pressure rate of 33% when he does decide to make that decision. So he can get to the quarterback and fluster them. He's just, I think they have a rate. I think it's next gen stats. Chaos?
Yeah.
Chaos rate?
Chaos rate.
He ranks number 1 in the entire league.
By a long shot.
By a long shot.
Yeah, it's by a lot.
Because he's equally efficient everywhere on the field. If you want to blitz him in the backfield to get to the running back, he'll do it. If you want him to cover wide receiver, he can do that. If you just want him to be in coverage and just little pump fake, like he's going to jump a route. That's how Trevor Nowalski got his interception against the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Brian Branch is the ultimate ace.
He is an equal opportunity playmaker. Like, it doesn't matter if it's in the run game, in the pass game, breaking up passes, intercepting the ball, making big tackles. He is everywhere. He's been one of the best defensive players in the NFL so far this year. Brian Branch, thank you, Green Bay. Thanks, Green Bay. You just gave us a all-world talent. Like, this guy is just
Seriously.
an absolute dog. I see Shift God OTC says C. Murda. Carlton Davis was one of the best players on the team.
That second interception was insane.
All game. He was just absolutely insane out there. Aaron Glenn's defense, I mean, I know we've been talking about it a lot, but that game should have been a 3-score game. You turn the ball over 5 times on the road against a good offense and a very, very capable quarterback in C.J. Stroud. That should have been a 3-score game. But Aaron Glenn and that defense, man, they stood up, especially in that second half. And no points for the Houston Texans in the second half. Just amazing stuff. And Brian Branch is right at the focal point of it. Especially in the second half, though, that defensive line turned up. They couldn't get pressure on C.J. Stroud in the first half at all. We saw, obviously, C.J. Stroud had a lot of short fields in the first half, kind of like Jared Goff and the Lions offense did a couple games ago, but they couldn't get pressure. C.J. Stroud was sitting back there. He's able to go through his reads, and when you have quick and elusive guys like John Mechie and I can't remember, Tank Dell, and you have your playman coverage, you can't get pressure, they're going to get open because those cornerbacks are going to be guarding them for 5-6 seconds, and they'll get open eventually, and that's what we were seeing. But in the second half, Aaron Glenn really schemed up some pressures, really schemed up a couple different exotic blitzes. We saw some big plays out of some guys that you didn't really expect a lot from, like AQM and Pat O'Connor getting in the backfield, getting some sacks, making some big plays. It was impressive, man. Jerry Miller says both the CD's picks were sick. Yeah, like I talked about it yesterday. The first one was an absolute film room pick. That shows you he's a veteran. He's watching the tape. He's studying what's going on. He knew coming out of halftime, they like to run a couple different plays. If this happens, this is the play they're going to run. First play out of half, he read C.J. Stroud, immediately made a break for the ball and got the interception. And then the second one was just him being a pure athlete and running all the way across the field to intercept the ball in the end zone. Just a great, great performance by Aaron Glenn's defense. And surprise, surprise, the secondary is the main factor.
and we've been over this number too. We brought it up last week, but just the blitz rate without the pressure rate alone, without Aiden Hutchinson. With Aiden Hutchinson on the field, it was 30% of dropbacks. The Detroit Lions were able to get pressure. Since Aiden Hutchinson's injury, it's been 35.3% of dropbacks. The Detroit Lions were able to get pressure without him. That since he's gone down, we have the highest blitz rate in the league, even over teams like the Vikings. It's 40%, 40.5%. The Detroit Lions blitz rate was just 30 beforehand.
That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen when you have your all-world pass rusher go down for a year. Like a guy that was the MVP of the NFL through the first couple weeks of the season gets injured and goes down. You're going to have to make up for that somewhere. So I'm excited to see when you get Zadarius Smith in here. That's a guy who's going to create some pressures. We saw Lee McNeil really show out. Josh Pascal did a lot of great things in the run game, especially in his return. I thought him setting the edge and keeping contain was extremely, extremely important in limiting the Joe Mixon the way they did. So happy for those guys. The defensive line is going to get a jolt getting a guy like Zadarius Smith back. And when Iffy can come back in, I talked about him playing that Sam spot, maybe a little hybrid version of the Sam spot where he'll be out in coverage more, or maybe you could put Iffy at nickel if Meek Robertson's still a little, struggling a little bit. But
even Branch at nickel, then Iffy at safety,
you're getting a lot of guys to get healthy and more additions, more solid players to come to that Aaron Glenn defense. So more vegetables for him to cook with.